For this video, we are going to talk about a pretty powerful tool in the world of AI, and it's specific for software engineers, computer programmers, developers, people who talk to computers. There is a great tool called Copilot. Copilot comes from Github, which is the kind of like the online community for programmers, software engineers, tech people. If you were to have a LinkedIn, but you could actually collaborate in your business dealings, that would be GitHub. So it allows you to source programmers, open source projects and technology can be stored on GitHub. A lot of great things. It is a core tool, a core network for the developer ecosystem. They use all their data or some percentage of their data, though I think we would all be very shocked and or frustrated to learn how much of our data they use to train their model to create Copilot. And if we take a look at the landing page for Copilot on GitHub's website, they call it your AI pair programmer. And for those of you that aren't familiar, pair programming is the process by which software engineers collaborate with other engineers. Typically, it's two programmers, one computer working together. And obviously what they're suggesting here is that instead of a second person, you have AI. Pretty nice little overview. I mean, honestly, I didn't really find too much information here. I had experienced Copilot through a lot of other forums, but I'm gonna pause specifically on price. So we wanna talk about price here because one thing that is being shared a lot is how AI is eventually going to replace programming, and I believe that will be true eventually. The question is how soon? And I think we're a little bit farther away than people would suggest or people would like us to believe. But what's very interesting is when you think about the efficiency. So software engineers tend to be some of the most expensive hires a company will make. And the idea of making them even a few minutes more efficient over the course of a month can easily pay for a tool like Copilot. One thing that I was also impressed to find when I installed Copilot is it allows you to remove your code from their training of models. And I think that's an important thing that will be coming up more and more as creators contribute online is allowing us to specify our preferences when it comes to what can be used to train this model. At first, when Copilot was released, there was a massive uproar in the developer community. It felt like an act of betrayal because this group that we had been trusting and sharing all of our private code with, the body of our work, and for many of us, our entire careers have played out on GitHub, and they took it to train a model that might replace us. Doesn't feel right. However, in this case, what it actually is suggesting is that it's a great ride-along tool. And so I'm gonna demo just a few things that Copilot can be used for. Definitely worth checking out. What I have found is even if I use it once a month at this $20 a month price point for business or $10 for personal, it's absolutely worth it. My encouragement for software engineers who are getting into the industry is to try it, to take, and even if you have to pay $10 out of your own pocket, it is worth getting to learn tools like this. There is a very popular podcast in the tech and startup world called This Week in Startups, and something that the host says a lot that I don't agree with yet is that tools like this allow any developer to become a 10x engineer. 10x engineer is like this mythical individual who can do 10 times the amount of work as just your average employee. I believe that there are software engineers who are that capable. I don't think tools like Copilot are going to help people achieve a 10x return on what they're able to do. However, I would say 20 to 30% is very reasonable. So when you think of the average salary of a software engineer, multiply that by 20%, and clearly see that from a value perspective, Copilot is absolutely worth it. But let's go ahead and dive in here. I want to share with you something. So what we have here is a Ruby file. This is a document template controller. It doesn't really matter what the page is. What it matters is it's some Ruby, and we are going to watch Copilot actually suggest what I should be inputting as my next line. So as soon as I press enter, or maybe if I press spacebar, it will start to make suggestions. And then if you backspace, it will remove your suggestions. Sometimes it tries again, other times it just waits to see what you're gonna put in place. I've been dabbling around with this screen for a little bit, and so it might require a little bit more prompting or a little bit more of a push to get what I want. But here you can see I've defined the first line, so line 5, and then line 6, it suggests that I'm taking what I've defined on line 5 and actually changing the order, right? So sorting it by position. And then if I were to try it again, there we go. Now it's gonna paginate. For those of you that are familiar with programming, you'll know that this kind of, declaring the class that you want to grab and then ordering it and then paginating it is a super common workflow, right? So no surprise there. Pretty neat that it starts to go down that rabbit hole. One of the things that I'm going to do here, and you'll notice I just type over what is actually being suggested. And again, the suggestion is in this grayed out area. I can press tab and it will autocomplete. So it believes I want page title. One thing that you don't have the context for in this video is page title is a variable I use throughout the application to specify the name of the page that we're on and present that in the browser. So watch this. When I come down here, page title, our document template name. Similarly, if I come down, and what you'll see is as I move throughout the document, I'm really just pressing enter and then tab, enter, tab. Pretty powerful, right? Very little typing, and it's anticipated some pretty basic maneuvers. So a large chunk of programming is copy paste. In this case, right, obviously I want each of my actions to have a page title. It's a little bit better than a guess, but in this case, that's not actually what I want the page title to be, right? I don't want the edit view to match the show or profile view. I want this to read different. And I was going to change it to edit document template, but it went ahead and assumed that's what I wanted to do, right? So it's registering that I deleted what it put in before, and it's suggesting the next most likely outcome. And in this use case, which is a pretty rudimentary use case, you can start to see how efficient that it is and how accurate. It's done a lot of really simple, kind of almost obvious things, but I haven't had to do them. It's anticipated those needs and it's done it line by line. Now we're gonna go a level deeper here. This is not something you would usually do in a controller in Ruby. I am going to just use this real estate to start to demonstrate some other deeper functionality here. So it's trying to anticipate that I might want to have different formats for the page to respond. That's a very natural next step. So I'm gonna press tab. Because I took its first suggestion, it's then going a little bit further on the second, and actually for the loop here is giving me two popular formats. Okay, but that's not what I wanted. What I want to show you is how you can use comments. So in this comment, one of the most helpful use cases that I've seen is with regular expressions. So regex expressions can be pretty tricky. It almost looks like this mashup of all these like symbols and characters, and then it just spits back this result. Or a common regular expression that I just used recently was taking a string, so a sentence, and I wanted to separate all the words in that sentence and give me back one at a time, right, in an array. So break a sentence of words into an array of individual single words. So here we go. Okay, so I have completed the first comment, and I'm not a big fan of commented code, but what I'm doing is, it seems like I'm signaling Copilot what I intend to do next. So when I press enter, what it's actually gonna do, and this is pretty clever, is it gave me a Stack Overflow article where I could go and learn a little bit more about what I was trying to do. Okay, so I press tab and it put that in here, and I'm not gonna click over, but I have gone to this link, and yes, in fact, it is what it promised. And then when I press enter again, what I could do, let's assume I had a string defined. Okay, it's giving me a string, which is clever. And then next line, it is giving me a split, and then it's putting in the regular expression that would split the sentence into words. Let's see what it gives me next. And then it shows me what this should print, right? I'm not gonna dive super deep here and actually show you this in action, but I can tell you, because I've tested this, this will actually work. Didn't have to think too much to get there. It is very quick to suggest things, and in further inspection, or through further inspection, I realized, wow, that's not really what I wanted, or that's just straight up inaccurate. For example, I was trying to do something with the Hebrew calendar. Long story, but in the Jewish tradition, they have what's called a Yurtzeit, which is the anniversary of somebody's passing mapped back to the Hebrew calendar, not the Gregorian calendar, which we're used to. And so I wanted some help trying to create that script. And so let me see if I can actually recreate that here. All right, so you can tell it's starting to get to work here, but where it starts to have a limitation, and I've used a couple of other AI tools for this as well, is it's very confidently giving me back what it thinks I want, and I can't get their response to work. In the most rudimentary use cases, it's super powerful and can get the job done. For a lot of copy paste and basic functions, it seems to really be hitting it out of the park. However, for more sophisticated and complex stuff, it's not quite there yet. On a regex, which actually is it's strangely complicated, it does a great job because that's a very known thing. There's plenty of articles online. It's obviously even suggesting those articles, but as it gets to larger and larger scripts or more complex code bases, it struggles. The added value or the speed that comes from just being able to tab enter when I'm doing a lot of repetitive functions, it's absolutely worth it. But it's not quite there when it comes to thinking about the overall efficiency of software engineering, because so much of engineering is about solving problems, and this is supporting, much like the name promises, right? It's supporting the solving of problems like a Copilot would, but it's not there to be able to write that code itself just yet. But it's a pretty great start. If you're a software engineer or computer programmer, I would encourage you to go to GitHub, check out Copilot. I did actually have to switch text editors. I personally have been a big Sublime Text fan for most of my career, and I switched text editors because the Copilot only works with a few text editors. It's been a pretty steep learning curve switching text editors, but actually getting Copilot integrated into my flow has been pretty simple. So check it out.